Leah Hampton is a fellow at the Michener Center for Writers and the editor-in-chief of That City Review. Her work has appeared in Ecotone, Story South, Appalachian Heritage, the Los Angeles Times, and elsewhere. Please welcome Leah.
Hello. I'll be your lady writer this evening. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. Gabino, please buy his book, which I'm very excited about. I'm going to read from a short story of mine called Boomer. It needs just a tiny little bit of setup. It's about a firefighter who is going through a divorce at the same time that he's fighting a major forest fire. And this is based on, I come from Western North Carolina, which is up in Appalachia. And during the fall of 2016, when everybody was blaming us for Trump, what was actually going on was all our houses were burning down because it's a very wet area, but we had a very rare forest fire because of global warming. And so this is some gritty realism for you about what it's like in my home. And if you get confused, it's just a firefighter trying to save everything. That's the story. I'll skip around a little bit. Let's see. Hollow Rock backed up onto 12,000 acres of what was usually damp, lush state forest, and that whole expanse was a husk. Summer had been a long drought, autumn clear and warm. It hadn't rained for 7 years. The forest floor rustled itself in even the weakest breeze. Fluffed up leaves, all papery and loose, waited to catch light. Larry thought it was as if the whole of the world was asking to be fueled. The air snapped with brittle coolness and smelled of rust. Soon everything was on fire. The forest at night went cinematic. Slithers of bright amber inched in chiaroscuro through the blackness. Millions of orange cinders floated around Larry as he worked. Fire likes to jump, send out emissaries. Each night, more ignited dander, leaves, twigs, campsite detritus, swirled and arced over the ditches and lines they dug, above the pocked logging roads they used as markers. Embers burned bright and small, like sprites, carrying the news of fire. Larry watched them with his mouth open. He wheezed inside his mask. His breath echoed and pooled hotly on his upper lip. Even masked, he could taste the embers of the scorched air. Their tendrils passed delicately in front of him, seeking hosts. When it was quiet, when no one was shouting, Larry heard the trees recoil from them. Branches crackled, trunks creaked and flinched from the tiny bites of flame. Most of the embers burned themselves out and dissipated into charred vapor. Some he swatted or stomped. The few that caught a wind continued on in the thick ether above the forest, eventually coming to rest on fresh, dry victims in the distance. Blazes boomed up like signals from the peaks, and the sky for 50 miles in any direction was a low tarp of ash. The governor released the National Guard, and FEMA set up evacuation stations up and down the Blue Ridge. In Tennessee, people were dying, suffocating in their cars as they tried to escape. None of this made the news. And then, 6 weeks pass, it's still on fire. The Folk Center had caught fire that morning and had to be evacuated. May, his wife, heard about it on the radio and stopped ransacking. She waited for Larry to get home. She said, "Can I have the frog lamps?" Her voice was low, half tender. She was holding one of the lamps. Her left hand cupped the pewter lily pad base. Her other hand gripped its stem, a slim, iridescent column of crystal that swooped up into a bulbous frog leaping under a fringed silk shade. Under the kitchen light, the frog swirled a kaleidoscope onto May's small knuckles. Larry was eating soup straight out of a can. He stood at the kitchen counter, perpendicular to his wife. "Your mama bought it for us at the Folk Center," she said. "Remember?" Larry leaned into the counter. The edge of the formica cut into his hip, and he closed his eyes. He rolled a salty potato on his tongue and wished he could go back to Cherokee, back to Kuala, to the wet spring. "I want the pair," said May. "They have to match. They'll be worth something now." Larry had spent the last 36 hours with a small crew high above Hollow Rock in a clearing he'd never seen before. They'd been digging a broad, hopeless ditch. For a while, a platoon of freaked-out elk clustered at the edge of the clearing and snuffed at the firefighters as they worked. The cow elks fidgeted. The bulls folded their legs underneath themselves and huddled in the leaves, watching, until the herd finally rose together and receded into the hazy wood. Larry's hands were black. He was on his 4th pair of boots. November was half over. Only local news vans dotted the street outside the fire station in town. All the state officials down in Raleigh were still hoping for recounts or high-fiving each other over electoral college votes. No one knew they were here. Larry's lips were so chapped that big flakes of skin hung like torn plaster from his mouth. His fingers were so sore he couldn't ball a fist. He couldn't think of a place he loved or knew as a boy that wasn't on fire. His clothes, his hair, his truck, everything he owned stunk of rank sweat and ash. "Can I have them both?" May said. "I know you're tired, Larry, but I have to ask." He put down his soup spoon. He turned to May and put a hand under her jaw. Her skin felt warm. "Take the lamps," he told her. He breathed into May's clean hair, and the wood stove pinged again. "Take them and whatever else," he said. "Just please, honey, go on."